Our Computex 2024 coverage is made possible by Azus, G-Skill, Thantex, Team Group, Lian Li, ASRock, Corsair, XPG, Thermaltake, Clev, Montech, and Seasonic. What's up guys, I'm Stuart from GGF and we are at Computex 2024. It is still day one and we are at this humongous Thermaltake booth right here. Now we all know Thermaltake, they do their cases, which we'll be checking out. We'll be checking out a few models. They've also got some water cooling gear, which we know they always do. And then they have an interesting travel case PC that does come, or it will be built in to the actual luggage, so you can transport that with you and it will be all designed to fit into that case, ready to go. Now this case here that caught my eye is the CTE E550 TG, and more on this color, it is called gravel sand. So we have a bit of a brown aesthetic on the outside, the bottom, the feet, the top panel, and the back as well. Also on the glass, it follows it around. And then inside we have, I would say it's near like an orange. It's a very, very dark terracotta style, but you might be thinking, hey, this looks something like the E600, which I covered at CES, but the differences are here. The back fan tray has been removed, so we have glass on three sides. The main side, the front side, and the rear side are all glass. And the other thing you're not getting is you're not getting the riser cable. So the thing with having riser cables in cases, not everyone is going to want to pay that extra cost, because a riser cable is going to be anywhere between $60 to $100 US for a good cable. So by dropping that cable, by removing that part at the back, this case is quite a bit cheaper. Once again, like always, I'll put the prices, any release dates in the description so you guys know all of that info. But apart from that, the case is very similar to the E600. Another thing that does support on this case is it does the back connect, so things like your ROG BTF, your MSI Project Zero, in this case will support that. So for those who aren't familiar with this chassis or the similar one in the E600, it does only have your motherboard rotating upwards. That is how this comes. So you're not thinking that, hey, this is being switched around just for this build. No, this case comes like that, so all your ports shoot up straight out of the top. So earlier this year, Thermaltake did release the Tower 300. That was at CES at the start, and that was a smaller, trimmed down version of this one. So this one is the Tower 600, and it is a little bit wider. So because it's wider, you can now fit ATX motherboards, whereas the Tower 300 was only MATX and lower for your ITX. So now we can fit your ATX, your MATX, and then your ITX motherboards. Because the motherboard shoots upwards, the actual length of your motherboard is this way, so making the case wider allows for that motherboard, rather than going upwards, which this case does not support, or your IO shoots up the top, and that's pretty much the same. It still has the 420 support for your radiator. It still can fit a humongous graphics card. This is an ROG Strix. Looks like a 4080, 4090. They do look the same, but there's plenty of room here. And I can even see there's more room further on if you want to put in something like a sound card and so on. And then you have three fans blowing directly onto that GPU for the best possible cooling. Now this comes in the full Thermaltake color palette. It'll have this is the matcha green, it'll have the white, it'll have the black. I think they do a yellow, and then they do that hydrangea blue as well. Now one design change that Thermaltake has done with the Tower 600, on the Tower 300, which I covered at CES, the actual power cable for your PSU went through a cutout in the back panel. So to pull this back panel off, you had to undo the power cable because it actually went through the hole. As you can see here, they've listened to feedback and they've actually got a cutout. So now when I do this, it's just a U shape. So on the Tower 300, this was a solid gap. So you had to pull this off and then you could take it out. So if you had your system on, you would have had to shut it down if you want to take the back panel off. And some new changes they've done, I wouldn't say changes, some extras they've added is these are magnetic panels. By default, they just pop up, and you might be wondering, hey, what does this do? Well, you can get an optional extra where it is an RGB panel that goes in there. So you can add some RGB accent lighting. Unfortunately, it is a bit noisy behind me. You just have to bear with me, and hopefully you can still hear. So you can get an RGB panel that goes on here and on the back here, and that just adds some nice aesthetic. Now moving on to some water cooling, and we all know Thermaltake do love their custom cooling. Now over here, these look pretty insane. We have all of these three are reservoir pump combos. This one here is the DP140R DDC. Now they're all DDC. This one is absolutely huge. So this obviously is going to go into a 140mm fan location. The one in the middle here is a 120. Obviously this one's square, the other one is round, but they do both go into fan locations. So it's up to you on what type of aesthetic you would prefer. Now on my left here, which is going to be your right, we have the PR5 DDC Plus. Once again, DDC, which all of these are running. It's pretty interesting they've gone with DDCs for all of these. DDCs are very capable pumps. Normally you don't need a D5, but I think for the size of this one, you could have definitely got a D5 in there. These would definitely fit D5s, but probably because the depth on these, they want to keep it a bit smaller because of the DDC isn't as deep as D5s. Now these all have a machined aluminum top. I can't take these off. It would be nice if I could, but other than that, they seem very, very heavy, very, very thick, and it will be interesting to see. Actually, in saying how these look in a build, I'll throw some B-roll. They did tell me they got one of these in a system. We'll have a look, see how it's hooked up, and see what it looks like with cooling. Now, one last thing I want to cover with their fittings. I've covered their fittings all the time in these videos, but they're now bringing out not rotary fittings. They always have rotary fittings, but these are their offset fittings. And I'll get some close-ups. And now I really do like offset fittings because normally when you're doing a build, even in smaller cases, you have like a 2 or 3 millimeters you want to work with, and this will work well where you can just spin it around and then you get that offset you need. And they also have a new 16 millimeter end fitting, which is their C Pro. It doesn't have their machining part on it. This one's very smooth, and that just gives you a different texture. And once again, I can see that these are all 16 mil. I've been really begging Thermaltake to bring these out in smaller sizes like your 14 mil and 12 millimeter sizes. Now this over here is what Thermaltake are calling the travel PC or the TR100. Now this is a very early prototype, and what you get here is everything in this photo. Probably not the VR headset and so on, but the travel case is going to be designed to go with this SSF case. So this is a small form factor chassis, and it will go in this suitcase setup. So we haven't really seen any companies do the whole kit. Now I know a lot of people do love their SSF builds, I love their SSF cases, but then it's always a bit of a struggle trying to find the right carry case, the right Pelican case, or just something to take your build with you, because a lot of reasons why people go with a small PC is they travel, they work interstate, or they may work overseas, and they need to take the system with them because they don't prefer taking a laptop. So now with Thermaltake, at the moment I can see this has pretty much been thrown together for Computex. I wouldn't say it's 100% perfect. It just looks like there's some foam being stuck in here, but obviously with some feedback, I want to know your idea. Is this something they could do if they did some better molding that was designed to specifically fit this case exactly? Then there'd be areas for like your keyboard, your mouse. Obviously this has been cut out just for this show, but it gives you a bit of a design idea on where they're going and the road they're going down for something like this. But in saying that, moving more onto the case itself, it's really hard in this corner to take a look at, but it is a standard sandwich design. GPU on one side and then your motherboard on the other side. Supports up to 280 all-in-one cooler, so that's pretty good. It's kind of 50-50. A lot of these small form factor cases may only do 240. This one does 280, and then it supports up to graphics cards 360 millimeters in length. Now that is it at the Thermaltake Computex 2024 booth. Now obviously we couldn't go over everything because we would be here for days, so we just covered those few cases and the water cooling gear. But anyway, I want to thank Thermaltake for letting us check out all this gear. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.